I watched the Stranger Things teaser trailer at 0.25x speed, and what I found is crazy. The video is filled with Easter eggs that Netflix doesn't want you to notice, and today, I'll be going over every hidden detail, starting off with one of the most insane details in the teaser. We begin the trailer with Steve adjusting a radio antenna, and the volume on the radio goes up steadily throughout the trailer. Now we know that music and sound are one of Vecna's biggest weaknesses, and that is how Max escaped in the last season. We also know that a radio was used to communicate with Will in the Upside Down, so this can mean one of two things. Either the volume is being weaponized against Vecna to incapacitate him, or it's somehow enhancing Eleven's powers, or maybe it's being used to create a secret gateway to the Upside Down without Vecna's knowledge. That brings us to the next shot, which shows the party cycling away from the WSQK Watts building, which is next to a radio tower. The tower seems important as Vecna's clouds are seen surrounding it later in the trailer. Whatever Steve and the gang were doing seems to be connected to this tower, and it's obviously getting Vecna's attention. After that shot, we see Joyce, Nancy, Robin, Eleven, and Will, possibly in the WSQK building. Mike is heard saying, "The burn commencing in 5, 4, 3, 2. He never actually gets to 1, which means we don't actually know whether the burn goes through as planned or if he's interrupted before it could even start. After all, it is Stranger Things. The group is then seen with scared looks on their faces later in the trailer, which could suggest that he did not reach the final part of his countdown, and something went horribly wrong. The burn itself sounds like a code name, either that it was a mission that the gang was orchestrating, or maybe it was them listening in on the Army's operations. After all, Robin did do something similar in Season 2. The Army's also seen burning down some of the portals in the shots, so the gang may have been timing their plan in coordination with the Army. We know that the Army has always been against the gang, and this season will be no different. So, with the Army refusing to cooperate, perhaps the gang was forced to listen in on their plan to be able to safeguard their home from Vecna. Speaking of Vecna, we need to talk about his plan. At the end of Season 4, we know that a huge rift coming from the Upside Down was created, going through Hawkins and destroying everything in its path. Months later, we see that the locals are still in their shelters and bunkers, but of course the Upside Down's presence has not left the town. The lights flicker as we see children being scared, and this shot really highlights the innocence of the locals of Hawkins and the psychological damage that this whole ordeal is putting on them. While the gang is off being on the front lines, it's easy to forget that this is a town filled with innocent people and ordinary lives. They're all suddenly put into a situation where the stakes are life and death. I don't really know yet whether these children will play any role in the story. Maybe they could be random side characters that the gang needs to save as part of keeping Hawkins safe. But either way, it's a great shot. Just like the next one we see in the trailer, Will is seen touching the back of his neck again, with his signature goosebumps that come up whenever the Upside Down's presence gets too close to the normal world. In the same shot, the background shows people carrying books. This seems to suggest that he was near Hawkins' library, where the portal is seen later on in the trailer. The library seems to take the same role that Starcourt Mall did in Season 3. This means that all the action will be centered around this place for the season. And just like last season, with Billy dying in the mall, we might see a few major deaths happen in the library, though we might be wrong considering how much the show has grown in Season 4, and especially for this season. One of the shots that really displays how much the show has evolved is the scene where the boys are seen cycling in the opposite direction of Army trucks. In all of the seasons, bicycles were the preferred modes of transport for the gang. While they did use vans and others, the bicycles really showcase just how disadvantaged they are in the bigger picture. Just a bunch of kids that got into bad situations with no one to back them up. Even after 4 seasons, they're still the underdogs trying to figure out a solution to this problem. And when they are seen next to Army trucks and helicopters, it's hard to consider that they'll ever find a way to defeat Vecna. Speaking of the Army, they're involved yet again. With their usual mission of trying to capture Eleven, they would want her again to use her as a weapon against the huge rift in Vecna. This would have forced her into hiding, possibly at the WSQK building we see before. Maybe part of the gang is stationed there to protect Eleven in case something goes wrong, while the rest are off executing the plan. In yet another shot, we see Hopper next to an unconscious Eleven in bullet holes. He proceeds to throw 2 grenades back. The bullet holes confirm that it is indeed people with guns, better known as Army men. As we know, Hopper is a Vietnam vet, so handling such hardware is a cakewalk for him. But coming to the next scene, Eddie's rumors have not died down even now, and they probably have been exaggerated even more. In Season 4, Eddie was blamed for what happened to Chrissy and was denounced as a Satan worshipper. The rift that was caused in Hawkins probably blew these rumors up even more. They probably started blaming him for the rift too, as the locals believe it is a gateway to hell. His tombstone is defaced with the line, "Burn in hell." Dustin visits this grave with a sad look on his face. Dustin is seen later with black eyes and bruises. This could mean that he got into a fight with people for Eddie, trying to prove his innocence. The next shot is of Lucas and Max in the hospital, with Max still in a comatose state. In the last season, Max risks her life to save the gang, and is then brought back to life by Eleven. Her radio is seen next to them with a tape beside it. The tape possibly contains the Kate Bush track, "Running Up That Hill." as that is what rescued her from the last season. Lucas is probably hoping that it will also wake her up from the state that she is in, but she has still not gotten up, and in a later shot, Lucas is seen protecting her from demidogs. Whether she is fully awake or just barely conscious is unclear, but she is definitely defenseless, as she is still tucked in her hospital scrubs. Speaking of Lucas and Max, as far as relationships go, fan-favorite relationships like Joyce and Hopper, Mike and Eleven, and Jonathan and Nancy seem to be going strong. As much as we wanted to see what happened to Dustin and Susie, there was no scene of her in the trailer, but Jonathan and Nancy seem to have a problem on their hands. In the next shot, Jonathan says, "After what we've been through this thing, it ties us together forever." We all know that when characters speak with finality, chances are they're not making it out of the season. In the trailer, we see Jonathan, Nancy, Dustin, and Steve going into the Upside Down, and they get separated, with Jonathan and Nancy together, and Dustin and Steve together. More disturbingly, in another shot, Nancy is seen washing blood off her hands with an absolutely devastated look on her face. Did Jonathan never get on the van when Steve drove them out of the Upside Down? We know that Nancy is not the type of character who gets fazed easily. She is not afraid to pick up a gun and spill some blood, and yet this completely destroys her. Dustin and Steve look devastated too, hugging and consoling each other. All of this points to the possibility that Jonathan does not make it to the end of Season 5. Joyce's worst nightmare probably came true, shaking the very foundation that the gang is built upon. There are more Easter eggs referencing Season 1, like when the gang joins hands over a map and D&D figures. This is a nice nod to Season 1 when they use the figures to explain the Upside Down. It's nice to see that the figures are still crucial tools in the gang's strategic planning. Same with when Joyce wields an axe again, just like she did in Season 1 when she was trying to rescue Will. Speaking of previous seasons, Demogorgons and Demidogs are back, as we see them chasing Lucas and Max. Hopper and Eleven are shot looking up at egg sacs in another scene. All of this means that Vecna is probably growing his army again, and the gang needs to do everything possible to stop them. This explains the surprised look on Eleven's and Hopper's faces, and Hopper and Eleven's father-daughter relationship is obviously still going strong. Hopper says, "Wherever this blood leads, I need you to fight one last time," which she obviously will follow as she goes into yet another sensory deprivation tank. She probably would try to fight Vecna in the dark void, but fail, and find herself face to face in the Upside Down. In one of the shots we can see a demidog reaching for someone, and that could very well be Eleven, though it could also be Max, who may have woken up from her comatose state in the Upside Down rather than in Hawkins. If that is true, then Max and Eleven could probably fight Vecna together, though Eleven might be strong enough not to need any backup this time around. Eleven is definitely more capable of fighting Vecna face to face this time. She has achieved levitation with her telekinesis. In one shot, she managed to jump onto a bus. This is why I said that it was probably Eleven who was trying to escape from the demidog. It seems to be a long jump, and that kind of distance just isn't possible without the kind of powers that Eleven has. This face-off is probably when he says "found you." As I've mentioned before, the gang was probably trying to get into the Upside Down without Vecna noticing them, so it's fitting for the boss fight to start with that phrase. But that's not the only main character we should be focusing on. Will's role has been underplayed since the very first season. We see him with his signature Upside Down warning signal, but outside of that, he has faded to be a background character. Luckily, as the trailer seems to suggest, and we will be seeing a lot more of Will this season, Eleven, Max, and Will all share a connection to the Upside Down, having been trapped there in various seasons of the show. So it only makes sense that these three need to come together to give the last blow to Vecna, to give not only Hawkins closure, but also to give closure to their own stolen childhoods, especially Will, who was the one who started this whole saga, and he has to be the one to end it all. The trailer builds to the anniversary of when Will was taken in the first season. On top of all of this, the trailer seems to suggest that Vecna does indeed get his hands on Will and the two come face to face. Would Eleven come to save him from the Upside Down again? Is that the reason Eleven went to the Upside Down in the first place? All of this can only be speculated for now, but we'll definitely get the answers to all these questions in Season 5. One of the strangest shots in the trailer shows Mrs. Wheeler holding Holly in what looks to be a sensory deprivation tank. There's been a lot of speculation that Holly would disappear early on in the show, similar to Will in the first season. This would let her establish a connection to the Upside Down and Vecna's of her own, so this scene could very well be the gang trying to exploit that connection against Vecna. With Holly being so young, it would make sense for Mrs. Wheeler to at least hold her through the horrifying process. All this talk about Vecna would take us to the end of this breakdown. His appearance has certainly changed. In the last season, he was burned, and fire is one of his few weaknesses. He was probably hiding away, healing, and bidding his time for his final big attack. He looks more spiky and more menacing. Could the trauma from the last season have exposed his bones? We do see fire still being used against him, likely by the army men trying to keep him from entering Hawkins. But he enters after tearing through what looks like a wall of flesh. We know from the previous season that Vecna had been out in the normal world only once before, and during that time, he killed everyone on sight. This means that the stakes of this season have been raised exponentially, with the whole of Hawkins, and maybe even the entire world at risk. There are some epic action scenes in the teaser trailer, and it certainly brings us back into the world of Stranger Things, even after 3 years since the last season. And all things considered, the trailer shows us that this will be the darkest season yet. The ultimate goal of this season is to end Vecna once and for all, but at at what cost? What do you think will happen in Season 5 and which characters will meet their end? Comment down below, and while you're waiting, you can check out this video on